All right, hey everybody. I just wanted to make a video that I've been thinking about for a while. I wanted to compare these two machines. This is the Philips Respironics. This is an auto CPAP machine. And I've used that one. I used that one for about a couple of years. And then I wanted to compare it with the top of the line ResMed, the ResMed Airsense 10. And this is the auto CPAP ResMed, and I've used them both, and I just wanted to make a video comparing them. I'm not trying to pit them against each other as to see which one's better, because they're both just amazing machines, and I've used them both for quite some time. I had the Respironics for, like I said, a couple of years, and then I had a chance to get the Airsense 10, the auto CPAP, and ever since then I've been using that one, for about the last 4, 5, 6 months, maybe something like that. And this was a machine I initially had when I got it through my insurance, and when I wasn't compliant, they came and took it back, so I wound up getting this one on my own, and then I started using this one again. I really like them both. The biggest difference right off the bat is that they are different shapes, and the Philips is probably about an inch longer than the ResMed, but as you can see, the Philips is also about well over half the size, half the height of the ResMed. So the ResMed's taller and a little narrower too. If you look at just the width of the machines, the Philips is wider. Obviously, two different companies making two different machines, so they're very different. This kind of a flat, slender one for the Philips, and the water chamber on this one I really like. I do have a favorite when it comes to the water chambers, because this one is my favorite. You can put it in the dishwasher, and to get it in and out is so incredibly easy. You just pull this little lever down to release the lock, lift this up, and then pull out the water chamber. Now I have had to replace the water chamber because on the bottom where the heating plate is, and oh man, it's already starting to do it again. If you can even see it, you might not be able to. Up here, it cracks on the bottom. I think the heat from the heating plate right here eventually just starts to get to the plastic, and it cracks. It makes these sunshine ray kind of cracks around the bottom plastic part. I've had to replace this, and I'm probably gonna have to replace it again, because what happens is after a while, I mean, everything wears down after a while, but after a while the water will start to leak out of here and pool in there in the bottom of the machine. When it does that, it's time to go ahead and replace the water chamber, and they're not terribly expensive. You can find them online in many different places, eBay and CPAP supply shops, things like that. This one you can put in the washing machine. The ResMed one you cannot. The ResMed is made a little differently, obviously. This one, here's the front of the machine. This one you just pull out, and you kind of give it a little squeeze on the top, if you can see where my thumb is. It doesn't really lock into place, but it kind of gets in there securely, and then to release it, you just kind of squeeze a little bit and pull out. Now this water chamber does not go in the dishwasher, so you have to empty it out, kind of, make sure and rinse it out, wash it out by hand. And what you do is there's a little lip here, you pull on it, open it up, and there you go. And they both have lines. You probably can't see, but they both have lines, water height indicators on each of these, so you know where the maximum is and not to overdo it. And the more you use these machines, you kind of know how much you use in the course of a night. Depends on your humidity settings, depends on how long you're wearing it, how high you have the heat. Do you have heating tubing? Do you have standard tubing? So they have, on this one, they have a minimum and maximum level, and you just kind of figure it out. You know how high to fill it every night when you go to bed. The ResMed water chamber, I don't like as much as this one. However, I will say I think the ResMed's a little sturdier because I have not had to replace, or I haven't noticed any cracks in the water chamber on the ResMed. But again, I like the design a lot better on the Philips. That's just my personal preference. And right here, there are two holes where the humid air goes into the, comes out. The water is in here, and through these holes, the humid air comes out and into the machine and into your mask. One drawback to that is when you take it out of the machine and you unlatch it and open it up, if there's any condensation in these holes, what I always do is I open it up like that, and then the condensation kind of comes out on my hand, and so you're just like, ugh, okay. I mean, it's not terrible. It's just kind of a fact of life. It's just the way things work. So not every single day, but at least every third day or so, I open it up, and the condensation drips onto my hand, and you just have to kind of remember that that's going to happen. So for each machine, each water chamber, there are pros and cons. Again, I like the design of the Philips a little bit better, but this one seems a little sturdier, so it just depends on what you like. Size-wise, like I said, the Philips is not as tall as the ResMed, but the Philips is a little wider. So you have to just kind of, think about where you're putting it next to your bed at night, and if it makes a difference to you. I mean, they both take up roughly about the same amount of space altogether, but they're both high quality machines. They're the top of the line for the auto CPAPs for each company. They both have the option to use heated tubing or standard tubing. I do heated tubing. That way I don't wake up so dry in the morning. So what I do is on the Philips, there's the three-pronged end that you just plug into the machine, and it snaps into place. And that's the heated tubing. Of course, you put the mask on. If you have the standard tubing, you still put it in the same place, but it doesn't snap in there. You just it's got that rubber end on it. You just put it on there, and it works just the same way, except it's not heated. The ResMed has, you know what? I honestly don't know if they just have standard tubing. The only tubing I have for the ResMed is the heated tubing. And you put it in like this. I'm sure they do have just standard tubing, but I haven't used it. You just plug it in, and to take it out, you squeeze and release like that. No big deal. So we do that. You can Google a bunch of different videos, and they'll show you the different menu, how to get around in the menus. Both very similar. They have a button here, and you just select up and down, and they both work relatively the same way. You just roll the dial, and then to select something, you press and select it. And getting into the clinical settings is not hard, and there are videos on that that do a lot better than I can do. So check that out if you want to adjust your settings. Probably the last thing I want to talk about is the sound and the noise level. Neither of these machines are noisy at all. A common misconception with CPAP machines is that they are loud, and they are not. They used to be, I think, 30, 40 years ago when they really first started coming out, on a mass-produced level. I have a lav mic here. I'm going to try and demonstrate how quiet these machines are. The ResMed is absolutely quiet. It has never bothered me when I'm sleeping. It has never woken me up. I mean, the sound of the machine. You just put it on and it starts. Now, anybody who uses a CPAP machine knows that the auto CPAPs have a ramp. Actually, the regular ones too, as far as I know, have a ramp setting. So you start on a certain number, and then it ramps up. It gives you some time to fall asleep while the pressure is relatively low, and then it ramps it up to whatever the setting is for the maximum pressure. For me, my machines they start on about 4, and then they ramp up to, I think 10 or 11. Much past 11, then it gets a little too much for me and it wakes me up. So it took me a long time to kind of figure out what the level is. I've had it, when they give it to you, it's just maxed out at 20 because that's as high as it goes. And no one really told me how to fix that and adjust it, so I had to figure it out for myself, which is actually not that hard. It just took a little time. So here's the ResMed. I put this on, and they both start automatically. And that's it. I mean, it doesn't get any louder than what that was, and that was nothing. So you put the mask on, and you just start breathing. After about almost 2 breaths, it kicks in, and it automatically just kind of goes. And then after whatever the ramp setting is, after about, I don't know, 10 to 15 minutes, something like that, it starts to ramp up gradually, and then it gets up to your maximum pressure. Okay, next we're going to do the Philips. Now the Philips, in my humble opinion, I think it makes a little bit more noise than the ResMed. And when I say noise, I'm not saying it's noisy at all, because it's not. It just there's a little bit of humming. With the ResMed, you hear your breath going in and out, and that's just breathing. And then with the Philips, you hear your breath going in and out, but it makes just the slightest little hum. And I don't even know if I can show an example of it, but when you use it for a while and you have the machine next to you, you know what I'm talking about. It just makes a slight little hum, kind of like that. I'm going to see if I can get it to do it, but I can't make any guarantees, and the machine's super quiet anyway. They're both really quiet. This one, the ResMed's a little quieter. Let me see if I can make this work, and I can show you what I'm talking about. Now that one, I don't think I can even convey how minute that sound is, and I can barely even hear it. To be honest with you, when I notice it is when I wake up in the morning and I still have the mask on. Then I kind of notice there's a little bit of humming, just a slight bit of humming. But in those examples right there, they're both just dead quiet, and that's just me being overly sensitive and overly critical with the Philips. Just a minute hum. It doesn't bother me. It's just something I notice when I wake up in the morning. Okay, the ResMed, you take no more than 2 breaths and it kicks in automatically. The Philips is a little fussier. When you put the mask on, you could tell, if you were watching a second ago, it took a minute for it to really start to go, and I had to go ahead and press the power button. It does start automatically, but sometimes it's a little finicky. Sometimes you just have to, if the seal isn't right or whatever, you just have to hit the power button and it just kicks in. And again, with the same ramp feature, so it starts on 4 or whatever you have it set for, and then after about 10 to 15 minutes, it ramps up just like the other one, and it ramps up to whatever your setting is. Again, for me, my settings, I like to max out about 10 to 11. And that usually does it for me. My AHI usually stays around, kind of depends. It goes between 3 and about 5.5. They really want you under 5, which I am most of the time. Or if I'm not under it, I'm like right at 5. But anyway, that is the difference basically between these two machines. I hope that helped. If you are trying to compare some machines and you're thinking about which ones to buy, that is my personal experience between the Philips Respironics and the ResMed. Anyway, I hope that video helped. Thanks for watching. It was just a real quick video to show a comparison between the two machines. So thanks a lot, everybody, for watching, and take care.